Simon, a final one today for you to get your teeth into, and it's a decent one because both linked with a potential buyout of Manchester United, which the phrase itself will be music to the ears of many Manchester United fans. But if Amazon or Apple were to get their hands on the Manchester giant, what then? Would that spell the end for the traditional football broadcaster and the beginning of the Premier League streaming revolution? Is that the end for Sky and BT if we welcome Amazon or Apple to the fray?
Not necessarily. I mean, obviously back in the day, Sky B tried to buy Man United, but that was blocked by the DTI. That was blocked by the Monopolies and Mergers Committees because the nature of the broadcasting deals at that time were very different to they were now. And so they saw it as a conflict of interests and also a monopoly opportunity. Now, of course, football is going to keep on evolving, and how we consume football and how we watch football is going to keep on evolving. I certainly hope the game doesn't change to meet the desire to evolve, but the method of delivery is going to change.
And, I mean, if Amazon or Apple were to get their hands on United, they'll push for more streaming of United matches.
Well, yes, of course they will do.
Clearly.
And how that flies in the face of the current lineal broadcasters, specifically Sky and BT, is a different discussion. I think that, as you know, I have spoken for some time about the necessity for football, not individual football clubs, but football, to row its own boat and to be its own broadcast partner and to be able to deal with its own, because it's got the content. It's not like Netflix. Netflix built a business upon taking other people's content and now builds its own content, whereas football's got its content, and so it would not be beyond the gift of football to be able to develop 100 million subscribers around the world paying £10 a month for 12 billion a year rather than the 3 billion a year that it currently generates, and of course then advertising on top of that. So I think it makes an interesting set of dynamics where you start to talk about businesses like Amazon, who ostensibly are a retailer, and have invested in football primarily to buy some broadcasting rights because they wanted to hang their hat on it at retail times of the year. You'll see that they'll put a full schedule on Boxing Day on Amazon because it's a Boxing Day sales. That's the hook. That's the reasons why they do it, and they didn't pay a lot for it. Quite frankly, these were the packages on the side, and they were the last ones off the list of broadcast deals that the Premier League had to give away. Because don't forget, the Premier League had to give away far more games this time round to get the same sort of revenue.
You're right, Simon, but Amazon are already showing that they're prepared to dig deep if they have to. I mean, they're going to show 17 First Pick Tuesday Champions League matches from 2024.
Well, absolutely.
And they spent 1.5 billion getting that.
Because they are seeing the benefits of the Association of Football. They're seeing the opportunities for their core business. And, of course, at the end of the day, if they can monetize their streaming opportunities as well as bringing people into the core Prime, if you put it behind a paywall of Amazon Prime and whatever else, you generate more subscribers. Of course, it's going to put challenges out there. But this is one football club, not 19.
Sure.
The Premier League is some of all its parts.
But it's the biggest, as you always tell us.
I think it's the biggest, yeah.
Could you see this happening?
No.
Manchester United owned by Amazon.
I don't see it happening. And I don't see Man United being sold at this moment in time, because whilst I think there's a huge appetite for English football clubs, there is an appetite to a certain point, and when people are suggesting that Man United may only be prepared to be sold for £7 billion, that appetite will dwindle and diminish to a very small amount of people. Now, Amazon might be one of those in place, but I doubt it. I think you're more likely to see Amazon do more with broadcasting rights than you are likely to see Amazon owning Manchester United Football Club.
Now, Simon, there's a buyer out there.
Well, of course,
even at 7 billion. You and I have just come from a land where
there is a buyer out there.
Money is
but
no object at any time
$7 billion for a football club. You're pushing up against something that's very difficult to establish a value on, because it's certainly not worth £7 billion in economic terms. It's worth £7 billion for a variety of other reasons, which are intangibles, which are brand association, vanity projects.
This is the biggest club of the lot. This is the jewel in the football crown.
But there's a big difference, isn't there? Between there's no ball club out there, not even in the NFL, that have far more revenue streams at this moment in time than the Premier League clubs do. That's in the eight, because if you convert that to dollars, it's $8.5 billion. There isn't one out there that's worth $8.5 billion. And Manchester United, albeit in the sport, which is no doubt the biggest sport in the world, still I think is a struggle to get to $7 billion.
Okay.
No, but then you test someone's resolve. I mean, the Glazers will probably go for $5.5 billion. So then you start moving into the territory of what were Chelsea, 2.5 billion, plus a commitment to spend another 1.7 billion. That doesn't count. A commitment to spend another 1.7 billion is just the going concern.
What do you think this conversation would have been like? And we're not going to name the people who were at the dinner you and I had on the Thursday night before we left. Mm-hmm. The money round that table in Doha was breathtaking. Yeah. This is a straightforward conversation to people like them.
Of course. To some extent it is. But don't underestimate people who get into positions of having great wealth, knowing the value of money. And, you look at PSG. What did they buy PSG for? 70 million? What have they spent on it? Maybe 1 billion? And they're prepared to turn down 4 billion at this moment in time. That's a different discussion. But it's one thing buying football clubs and investing in them as going concerns. It's another thing fronting up £7 billion to buy a football club before you even spent a copper coin on what it'll cost to run them.
Sure. Okay.
I don't see this, but I do see an evolving marketplace on streaming and the broadcasters, and I think that's a good thing, because if an independent regulator comes in, Premier League are going to start having some money sucked out of them.
Well, according to various media outlets, people close to the talks have cited Amazon as a genuine contender.